being rational, to me at least, implies dealing with your own irrational part as well. Coming back to those self-help books, it's all great as long as you do not forget that it is an unproven, very subjective, very biased compilation of ideas, experiences coming from a wild array of sources that are not verified. You're good as long as you do not forget that it is not necessarily true. As soon as you start believing your own bullshit, you're fucked. This is a tendency that we all have to treat our own mental contracts as if they were objective facts. People who write self-help books will never tell you that it's possibly not true. And that is only their own private little fantasy. And of course, they never outright say that you have to believe it. At least most of them don't. And when you create such a system yourself, it's so easy to be totally forgetting about evidence and totally forgetting about searching for evidence to the contrary. Like that guy I talked about. I asked him, have you ever actively tried to find evidence that your system does not work? The message didn't arrive, it didn't get through. People can get so wrapped up in their little systems, and as the systems get larger and more complex, this can seem like an actual scientific system. It can seem so impressive. If you're confronted with such a system, chances are you're just overwhelmed by the intricacy and the level of detail. And I think if you take it to another level, and self-help can easily go to this other level, then you end up in cult land. Suddenly you end up with Scientology. Scientology is a good example. Scientology has a very complex language. And it is designed that way right from the start, just to make it seem scientific. One of the rules of Scientology is, if you do not understand a word, then look it up in a Scientology dictionary, of course, until you understand it. And because the words are defined in many different ways in many different places, you can never really understand them. You can never fully understand it. You can never reach that goal. So it always seems like you're the one to blame. You have not understood it yet properly. But the system, of course, is perfect. I think it's a bit like falling in love, really. Falling in love with your own system. And, well, we can all end up there. We can all go there. And to a certain degree, I think we have all gone there already in our lives several times. I know I've done it. It just takes an awful lot of time and introspection and self-reflection to get out of this state. And it's not a thing that you do once and then you're done. It's a thing that you constantly do. You know. So given that we are all somewhat irrational and that we are all constantly falling for our own biases, that basically a world inside our head is going on that is only dependent on the outside world to some degree, when faced with a self-help system or a metaphysical system, how can we judge whether the system has any value or not? Well, I think there are a few classical symptoms that can easily show you that something fishy is probably going on. And of course, that's not my idea. I basically stole that from somewhere on the internet, even though I can't remember the source right now. And part of it is just my personal experience. Uh, One symptom that I find rather telling is that the system claims to be the mother of all Uber systems. Like it's all encompassing and transcendental and total. The total system. It's always a sign of danger. Another interesting thing is if the system fails, that's just a sign that you applied it wrongly. That's an excuse that I think many rather metaphysically minded persons seem to make. In reality, if the system fails, then the system was not worth it, or it's just not fitting for you or your personality. And nobody is to blame, really. Another thing is that it's just not related to personal experiences. The author does not tell you what experience led him or her to believe that their system is true. So you have no way of deciding for yourself. And of course, that it doesn't relate to your experiences. I mean, if a system of self help cannot relate to your experiences, then it's probably useless for you. And another interesting part is you have to seal the deal. You have to take the whole thing, take it or leave it. You can't take only parts from it. If you take only parts, then you're doing it wrong. That's a clear danger sign to me. Um, and I think one very simple and interesting solution to that is to just slice it down. You know, in reality, there is no need to take anything as a whole package. You can always just take little parts. You can pray but not believe in Jesus. You can meditate but not believe in karma. You can do NLP anchoring without looking for eye access cues. It's all possible. And of course, everything that I have said before about self-help systems and metaphysical systems now applies to what I'm saying now, because of course what I'm saying now is just a condensation of my experiences and predefined rules that I've gathered from my parents and my society and my religious upbringing. Um, and to top it all off, I mean, there are systems such as Buddhism and NLP to some degree that actually acknowledge that the system is not perfect and still manage to sell it off as though it were. And then it gets rather ironic. I mean, that's where it gets. That's where I start actually admiring that stuff. You know, if you manage to tell somebody that you do not have a perfect system while selling them a perfect system, that's just great salesmanship. You know. Uh, I'm trying to sum it up somehow. This was really a very structureless rant, I'm afraid. Um, but in trying to sum it up, I guess I'm aiming at my ever repeated point: don't fall for your own bullshit. Peace.